Don't tell me we're going in there.
I'm afraid we are. This is the way in.
Looks terrifying.
You can feel the cold air blowing out.
I can. I'm not sure I want to do this now.
It's a bit late now, isn't it?
So is this the route that you'll have taken to get all of the stuff down here?
Yeah, most of it came this way.
So are we nearly there?
Getting there. I've dropped 2 more floors, I'm afraid.
Down there?
Yeah. It's quite slippy, so take your time.
Sure, this is the way?
I think so.
Wow. Oh no. We have a leaky way situation.
Oh dear.
I can see why you insisted on us wearing wellies.
Yeah, definitely the best footwear.
So how do you bring all the fresh bedding down to deep sleep?
Just in big backpacks.
Surely not this way.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. And all the food, everything.
So everything you need to bring down has to come along these pipes.
This is it.
Wow.
Yeah, just got to find the right key here.
That looks like a big door.
Yeah, it keeps all the monsters in. Right. So here we are. Come on in.
Wow. This is incredible.
Yeah, do you like it?
It is amazing.
Yeah, you can take your helmet off now if you want to give your head a rest.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So when you're in here, you don't have to wear your helmet?
No, not if you don't want to. No. You come up these steps and come and have a sit down. There we are.
Thank you very much. So, Miles, could you tell me a little bit about where we are?
Right now we are sat in the bottom of a slate mine. We are 1,375 vertical feet underground.
So what gave you the idea to build something like this?
It does seem a bit outlandish now you talk about it, but actually sleeping underground is not really that unusual from a caving perspective. There's a lot of like cave camps in the UK and certainly abroad where caves and mines are so big. If you want to go and explore the far reaches of them, you have to camp down there. And there's a number of cave digs actually here in Wales where it may take a day or more to actually get to the dig in the far reaches. So they've set up these really nice, actually quite elaborate sort of adventure camps, if you like, and they've got stoves and lighting and air beds and things, and it's all very civilized.
So it took us about, say, half an hour to get down here. Obviously some of the areas were quite slippy, a bit treacherous. Did everything come down the same way?
Pretty much, yeah. Everything's come down sort of on shoulders, really. We've got a few like cableways that have made it easier in some places, but yeah, everything has been manually carried down. There's no like trolley entrance anywhere.
So how long did this all take? It must have taken so much work.
It has been a lot of work. It's taken about 4 years, a bit longer actually. Well, I must say it's not been 4 years continuous. Obviously, we run adventure trips as our main occupation, but sometimes you get days when trips haven't filled up, bookings are quiet, so you end up with a bit of time you weren't expecting necessarily, and you've got staff on hand looking for something to do. So it's been a good time filler, if you like. So if you get a quiet couple of days, you can come down here and crack on. So I mean, that said, there's been a lot of work, and it's not all been me by any stretch of the imagination. The way we've done it, we're using different people as they become available, means that actually lots of different people have had some input into this. Some people may have done a few days work down here, other people have done weeks and weeks and weeks of work. So it's very much a joint effort, and people have done things in their particular way. So it's nice because it has been such a joint effort, and that's not faux modesty. You can find all kinds of people's little touches on this place.
So can people just come down here and stay?
Well, it's very different to like an accommodation experience. If you think of something like hiring a yurt or a shepherd's hut or something like that, what you're doing is you're renting a base for a holiday, or when you're visiting the area that you come and go from as part of your travels. But this is an adventure experience. It's a guided overnight adventure, if you will. So it's always under the guidance and control of a team of instructors.
So can you give me a rundown as to what this trip entails?
Well, we meet at our base on the surface, and it takes about half an hour to walk up to the mine from there, and about half an hour through the mine to get down to this point.
So do you stay down here with them when people are down here?
Yeah, there's always 2 instructors at any one time in the chamber with them throughout the evening.
So talk me through the guest accommodation.
Well, there's 4 log cabins here. Each log cabin has 2 single beds in, so it's obviously 8 guests. We also have a grotto, which is like a bit posher. That's got a double bed in it, so that gives us a capacity for 10 guests.
Do people bring their own food and drinks?
Yeah, they certainly can do if they want to, but it's not necessary. We do put on a bit of food in the evening when they've all got down here. It's kind of expedition camping style food, so it's a little basic, but it's tasty, and it's always very welcome after they finally got here. And in the morning as well, we give participants some breakfast bits before they go out. Nothing too heavy, because it's a bit of a slog to get out of here in the morning.
So I presume smoking and drinking alcohol is
I'm
out?
afraid so. Well, smoking is because it is a place of work, and it's enclosed, so it falls foul of the the smoking regulations. Alcohol also, yes, unfortunately. In case there was any need to evacuate the group during the night, if there was like a medical emergency, something like that, we need everybody to be sharp and alert, and having people half cut wouldn't be conducive to a safe evacuation.
So as we're sitting here chatting, I can hear drips of water and things like that. So does it get damp down here?
Yeah, the atmosphere does have a high moisture content. We are underground. But it's not to say that the cabins are damp. They're not. They are lined, and they're damp coursed, so they're extremely dry inside. Actually, they're as dry as any sort of hotel room, if you like. They do have dehumidifiers in them that run continuously when the cabins aren't occupied, because we're only in it one night a week, so inside that they're really warm and dry.
So how do you power all of this?
Well, there's a big bank of batteries just behind the cabins, and those batteries provide all the power for the dehumidifiers and the lighting and all the other infrastructure as well. Those batteries are charged by a series of micro hydro turbines, because we get a lot of rain here in Blaenau Ffestiniog, and the rain lands on the mountainside. It percolates through the rock, it enters the mine and forms little streamways, if you like, underground streams. And by putting little turbines on those streams, they spin, obviously, and make a bit of power. Not very much power, but it's enough to charge the batteries up, because they've got a week to do it. There is also a surface generator in times when the weather's been particularly dry. The turbines do always spin, they've never stopped, but at times of low rain, they don't really make enough power to charge the batteries fully within a week, so we do have a backup generator as well.
So am I right in saying that there's Wi-Fi down here?
There is, yeah. Yeah, there's Wi-Fi. There's about 15 megabits of Wi-Fi down here.
How on earth did you manage to make that work?
Yeah, that was a bit of a triumph for us, really. A very long cable is the simple answer. It's about 1 kilometre long, and it comes down to a wireless gateway down here, but the cable was quite a big deal to install, because obviously we run trips in this mine. We want it to look like it's supposed to look, like an old abandoned slate mine. The last thing we really wanted was to be running cables everywhere, sort of spoiling the look, if you like. So most of the route that the cables take is underwater through flooded sections of the mine. Some sections of those we managed to accomplish using divers. So divers have gone through these old parts of the mine, reeling out data cables, which has gone very well. I mean, there are parts of the mine that hadn't been dewatered in a century, but by using old plans that we were able to get access to, we could check where the tunnels went and link them up. Other parts of the mine we've had to drain in order to be able to get cables through.
How would you have drained those chambers?
Through siphoning and gravity. Excuse me, because we've not had the ability to pump out the water, so we've had to install big siphon pipes, get the siphon going and drain the water down, and then you've got a very small window before it fills up again to get your cables through. It took months fighting against the incoming water to get the levels finally low enough to be able to just about get through with enough headspace, get the cables through and let it all fill up again.
So as we've been chatting and walking down, you've mentioned 2 mines. You've mentioned Carmarthen and you've mentioned Oakley. Which mine are we in now?
Well, we're kind of in both. It's a little bit complicated, but seeing as you've asked, they were separate mines, separate companies, separate teams until 1901. And Carmarthen, which was the smaller one really, closed for good, came up for sale, and the mine next door, the Oakley, bought the rights to Carmarthen. Because they shared a boundary, it all became one big plot. So as they owned all that land, the Oakley mine was doing really well, and they actually dug through and underneath Carmarthen and connected up with it and worked some of the old Carmarthen chambers. So really it just became one enormous complex. So there wasn't really much differentiation between the two. The chamber we're in now is actually on the Carmarthen side of the boundary. So you could call this a Carmarthen chamber, but really it was put in by the Oakley miners, the Oakley quarrymen, actually in the 1930s, so it's not a particularly old chamber. The boundary came back into service in 1969 when the Oakleys finally closed for good. They repartitioned the 2 sides and sold them off separately. So we are on the Carmarthen side of the boundary, but the chamber was put in by the Oakley quarrymen.
So as we've come in and we've sat here, I believe this area is called the Caban.
Yeah, that's right.
So the sign above us now, Caban Will Roberts.
Yeah.
Why that name?
I want to tell you a little bit about what a caban is. It's, well, as the name suggests, really. In the simplest form, it's a place where the quarrymen used to come and have their lunch. But really, that's giving it a bit of a disservice. There's a lot more than that. You see, a lot of the work they did was involved hanging on chains high up on slate faces on their own with a candle, hand drilling shot holes. It was a very lonely and quite laborious job. It would take them hours and hours, and they couldn't really talk to anyone while they were doing it. So What they liked to do is when they got together for their lunch break was make it a real sociable thing, so they could give themselves some intellectual exercise as well. So they'd all get together in a cabin, a big long table like this, and they would discuss all kinds of things. It was quite formal and organised actually. They had like a list of topics they wanted to talk about. They'd keep minutes, they'd read poetry, discuss politics, they'd have competitions with other cabans, so each area in the mine had its own caban. So really they became very much a social focal point, if you like, and people within their cabans became, they got a really close bond with each other, so it was a very important part of their culture. There's actually 3 cabans in close proximity now. There's a very old Victorian one about 10 chambers away from here. There's another one that's newer, 1930s, it's about 5 chambers away. And this is the new one that we've built. They've all got a name. I couldn't tell you what the very old one is called because there's no record of that, but the middle-aged one is called the Queen Mary Cafe. And we've decided to call this one Caban Will Roberts, after a gentleman called Will Roberts. And Will Roberts and his father-in-law, they ended up buying what was left of the Oakleys in 1969. When it all closed, they bought the site, not the Carmarthen side, but the Oakley side. And Will Roberts's father-in-law was very much a straight quarryman. He knew absolutely everything about working the slate and excavating it and turning it into product. He was a real expert in his field. His son-in-law, Will Roberts, also a quarryman, a younger man obviously, he was very innovative and creative, very, very business orientated, and he sought to provide a lot of ingenuity and divergence from just straight slate quarrying. So he put an awful lot of effort and thought into turning the quarry into more than just a slate quarry. He opened up a large tourist centre there, opened up large parts of the mine for tourism visits, underground cap lamp tours, things like that. He used to take people around in an old Land Rover for another adventure, lots of exhibits and things. He managed to bring back a lot of machinery like locomotives and things that had been spread all over the land, and bringing them back to the site. So he really breathed new life into the place and kept it going very successfully for a number of years. And this wasn't even all that long ago. We're talking 1980s, 1990s, and a lot of people in Blaenau still remember him very fondly. I've never heard a bad word said about him. He's remembered in a very positive way. So it was really nice to be able to name this caban after him. I'm sure if he was around today, he would have found all this quite interesting.
So I noticed as we came in, we came through a big steel door. So is that always closed when you're in the chamber?
Yeah, when we have a group in here, the door is kept shut. For a number of reasons. There's always the risk of somebody sleepwalking. We can obviously manage safety perfectly fine in the chamber, manage the group fine, but once you're into the main fabric of the mine beyond that door, it's obviously got all the attendant hazards with an abandoned mine. So in the interest of public safety, we keep everybody in here unless there is some particular reason why we need to leave. And also you get lots of caving parties in here, offer and explore. It's such a big place, and there's plenty to go and see, and it's quite nice to bump into groups of explorers from time to time, but overnight, being an overnight experience, we'd rather they explore on the other side of the door, so it just keeps us all secure and private in here.
So how do you know that the roof isn't going to collapse?
This is structurally a really, really good chamber. It's about the best structural chamber we managed to find. There's over 1,000 chambers in this hillside, and a lot of them are quite old, and they were put in by people who were being pushed very, very hard for maximum productivity at expense of everything, including safety. and they're too wide and the pillars are too narrow, and they've not been engineered in a way that give them like a long-term stability. But by the time you get to the 1930s, when this chamber was cut, it was very different. The level of engineering that's gone into these chambers is miles ahead of the really old ones, and the rock here is very, very good. This is actually the end chamber as well. If you think of like a row of terrace houses, with each house being a chamber, the end one, this is what this chamber is here, so it's solid rock on one side, so it's not a pillar between chambers, which gives it even more strength. That said, obviously we've had a number of mines engineers look at the chamber in great detail. There's been like a full geotech survey where we've gone through every square metre of all the walls on the roof, looking for where the joins and the faults are, and assessing it as being suitable for the application that it's being applied to. Yeah, we've put in security pinning and telltales, things like that, all good. Rock securing techniques, we're extremely happy with it. You know, obviously we sleep in here as well. Frankly, I think it's a lot safer sleeping in here than on the surface. You know, I feel very safe sleeping here at night.
So have there been any explosions in this mine?
There would have been many explosions while it was working, controlled explosions, because gunpowder is how you got the slate down off the faces. But if you mean like disastrous explosions, like you'd read about, no, it's not that kind of mine. Something like a coal mine, because you're dealing with a carbon-based strata with the coal. In the majority of cases, it issues methane, which is obviously an explosive gas when mixed with oxygen in the right quantities. So in a colliery, it's a big problem. And if there's a problem with the ventilation in the colliery and the gas mixes with oxygen to just the right levels, you can create a big explosion hazard. So if you've seen history programs about explosions in collieries, that's what it is, coal dust and methane. But this is a fresh air mine, so it's not an issue.
Nice. So we've talked about Wi-Fi. Is that how you would call for help if there was an emergency?
Well, certainly one way you could call for help. It's a very reliable system now, but there is also a phone system as well. It's just a normal analog telephone line system, which is completely independent from the Wi-Fi. It doesn't share any of the same equipment. So if one system was to suffer an outage, then the other one is available for calling for assistance.
So what about if there was a fire?
Well, all the accommodation has very sensitive fire alarms. That's the 4 cabins, the grotto, and all the utility cabins as well. So they've all got interlinked fire alarms, so if one goes off, they all go off. And they're also linked to the surface. So as well as the 2 instructors in here, there is a surface controller as well, who's on duty for the night. And that person is there to monitor the fire alarm system, and also be able to receive a phone call if there's say like a medical problem. So they would become aware at the same time we do that there is a fire. That said, everything's been built from flame retardant materials. Not to say that a fire wouldn't or couldn't happen. We do have a fire safety system in place and an evacuation procedure that would get us out to fresh air very quickly.
So you mentioned that we are at the deepest accessible point.
Yeah.
Is there a risk of flooding down here?
No, there really isn't. Mines don't flood in quite the same way that a cave might. It's a very static water level. There is a flood level in the mine. It's actually just the natural water table of the mountain. It's just below us actually where we are now. The level does naturally fluctuate with the rainfall. It's a very slow fluctuation, and it's within set boundaries. The difference between full and empty is a vertical distance of about 15 feet. So it can't actually reach this floor. It never has done. And we know it hasn't because we found lots of little pieces of newspaper that were dropped by the men who worked here in the 1930s. And if it ever did rise above the level of the floor, those pieces would have been washed away. So it has never reached this point. And it's so slow moving that even if there was an absolutely biblical weather event and there was a phenomenal amount of rainfall directly above us, we would have hours and hours and hours of notice to evacuate and go to a higher level. So it's really not a risk. And if there was that amount of rain falling in North Wales, everywhere would be flooded.
What do you do if you need the toilet?
Well, we do have a very civilised bathroom down here. It's a little cabin, and in there is a normal ceramic flush toilet and a sink with soap. It is just for wee though. There is what we call a thunderbox next to it, which is for everything else, and it's like a composting system. But we explain how to use that to guests. But it's fine. You know, it's no different to when you're out on an expedition or something like that. It's slightly different to what you're used to at home, but it works fine.
What would you say was your biggest challenge?
Certainly the most work has been carrying everything down. That's where the bulk of the work has gone. That's not to say it was challenging, because carrying things doesn't pose much of a challenge. It's just really hard work. Challenge-wise, definitely installing the cables through the flooded sections of the mine was the biggest technical challenge. But it was critical because it gave us our communication that we wouldn't want to run this without, and it gave us the ability to bring power down from the surface generator if it's needed. And they're both things that we wouldn't want to run without, so they're very important, but they were very difficult to get installed in the way that we're happy with. It's also been quite challenging to get the cabins running in a way that we're happy with in terms of heat and having the humidity levels really low. And to get the humidity levels really low, we've had to get the hydro turbines working really well to be able to provide enough power to do that. So it's been a bit of a learning experience. There's not many books you can go to that tell you how to dehumidify cabins in mines.
What's your favourite part of this experience?
I quite like the social aspect, actually. When we have a group in here and we all sit around the table, I tend to do the food, sort out people's food. It's not always me that does that, but it's nice because you get to chat to people, and they're in a good mood because they're doing something interesting that they're booked onto. So everyone's, quite bubbly, and it's just nice to meet people and chat and tell them stories and things.
So there's a lot of little finishing touches. Who's been behind all of those?
Not me, that's for sure. I'm not known for my cosmetic attention to detail. Most of that is down to my wife, actually, who's got a much better eye for that kind of thing. And a lot of the interior design stuff, if you like, she's put her mark on that. And I'm sure you agree she's done a very nice job.
Now that it's all set up and it's ready to go, is there anything that you do differently?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't build all this on the bottom floor. It would have been a lot easier to do it just inside the mine, not all the way down here. But we wanted it to be in the deepest point. It wouldn't have... that's its USP. If it's just inside the mine, it wouldn't have been quite as an impressive a feat, I don't think. Having said that, it's certainly been a lot more work than I kind of expected. Not that I really knew what to expect, we've just been getting on with it, and been ready when it's ready. But yeah, if I had my time again now, I probably wouldn't have been so ambitious with the location. But here we are, we've done it.
So presumably there is a room down here that controls everything?
Yeah, there is. We have like a master control room behind the cabins that control all the movement of power. Would you like to have a look?
Absolutely.
Yeah, come on then. Just in here.
Wow. So what is this computery type thing?
It is a computer, it's a PC actually. This PC keeps my cabin warm, and it does that by performing medical research tasks as part of a cloud computing effort. So there's loads of computers like this all over the world finding cures for things like COVID and Alzheimer's and various cancers and things. And it requires quite a lot of computing power to do that, so computers that do it get quite warm. So it's a good way of getting free heat as a byproduct of doing something useful.
So what does all of this do?
Well, this lets me turn on and off all the different circuits in the chamber. So you can turn off and on all the heating and dehumidifying, and also route power around. So we can have the heaters run from either the generator or the batteries. It shows all the loads and things like that, so you can make sure everything's running as it should do.
Wow. So I can't work out what these green things are. Could you explain?
Basically what they do is, when the batteries are full, you don't want the turbines just to spin out of control because there's nowhere for the power to go. So it dumps all the excess power into these basically big green heaters, and they warm up and dissipate the surplus electricity.
It's actually been really interesting coming in and seeing the control cabin. I don't think I appreciated just how much work and how difficult it must have been to get everything down here and installed.
Yeah, it's really lots of different building blocks. You know, like the computer's one system, the inverter's another system, the two charge controllers, the turbines is another system, the charger's another system. So there's lots and lots of little systems that, yeah, each one on their own is actually not really that complicated or difficult, but the lot all together has taken quite a long time to get in and really make it work the way that we want it to. But really happy with it now. Everything works really, really well. It's very reliable.
It's very impressive.
Thank you very much.
So can we go and look at one of the turbines?
Yeah, it's a bit of a walk if you don't mind, but yeah, we can go and have a look at one.
Yeah, let's go. It is a long way to the turbine. How many miles are in Cardiff?
It's about 50 miles of tunnel down here, so it's quite easy to get lost.
Have you ever been lost?
Yeah, a couple of times. Almost there.
Ah, so this is one of the turbines.
It is. It's one of two that we've got down here. You can see the big fat pipe coming down from about 100 feet above us. There's a header tank that collects water in the mine, and there's a float switch in it. So when the tank gets full, the float switch turns on and it opens an electrical valve there, and it all rushes down and spins the turbine. That makes about 600-700 watts of power. So the more rain that comes in, the quicker that header tank fills, and the more from the turbine runs. If it's been a lot of rain, it will just run continuously. But even in times of very low rain, you'll still get some power out of it. I can actually show you what it's like if I do like a manual So that'll just open the valve anyway, even though the tank's not full. So that's now making power, sending it back to the deep sleep chamber and charging up the batteries. This turbine and the other one, they do very much the same thing.
So am I right in thinking that this is what's powering the deep sleep cabins?
Yeah, the batteries power the cabins, but these turbines charge the batteries.